All right, let's get into our second big story. Worried about the economic recession, the Nigeria Labour Congress has threatened to embark on an industrial action if by the end of 2016 the minimum wage is not reviewed.
Correspondent Sharon Jason has details in this report.
It's the 10th quadrennial delegate conference of the National Union of Food, Beverages and Tobacco Employees. Labour leaders gathered in their numbers to choose leaders to take the union to the next level. General Secretary of the Nigerian Labour Congress, while addressing the members, announced that workers are not finding non-review of the minimum wage funny. He also spoke about state government that are owing workers' salaries and allowances.
The minimum wage does not benefit just the workers themselves alone. When you pay a minimum wage that is a living wage, that leads to situations that improves demand, that will then allow domestic producers to be able to sell and make profit. So it goes to stimulate production domestically. It goes to stimulate other areas of the economy. It does not listen to this appeal. We will not be able to guarantee industrial peace going into the new year because workers are agitated and anxious. The 18 naira minimum wage has become so eroded that something urgently needs to be done about it.
During the delegates' conference, President of the National Union of Food, Beverages and Tobacco Employees, Comrade Lateef Oyelekan, spoke on how economic recession is affecting the manufacturing sector and why President Muhammadu Buhari has to ban the importation of some goods in the country.
We have a lot of resources in Nigeria, but we are not tapping. Let me tell you as an example. Now, we are just based our resources on crude oil, but crude oil has already betrayed us. So now let us look at other things. As I just said in my address, the government can look inward. Instead of us, we are getting expatriate on most of the manufacturing, and they are not expatriate, they are technicians. And then they are coming in. Why can't we get an expatriate on agriculture to come and demonstrate at agriculture? Although we will spend before we reap. And then, but between a year or 2 years, and then we gain, if it's the economy back, and then there will be job opportunity.
The theme of the 10th Delegate Conference is prioritizing self-sustainable strategy as potential antidotes to recession. Sharon Ijason, TVC News, Lagos.
Anytime you hear the word solidarity forever, we shall always fight for our right. When you hear that, soli, then you know there's trouble somewhere.
Well, you're a unionist in school.
Well, you certainly know I was. Joining us in the studio is the Vice President of Nigeria Labour Congress, Comrade Amaechi Asuguni. Good morning, Amaechi.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's really nice to see you.
Thank you very much.
Well, the struggle is continuing, aluta continua, Victoria Sata, they say.
Backward never.
When we talk about the issue of the minimum wage and the living wage, break it down for us. What's the difference between the minimum wage and the living wage? Let's have that understanding.
They are sounding the same.
Okay.
What simply defines that a minimum wage should be living wage.
Okay.
To take an average wage to say no one pays less than this, it means that such should be living wage considering the economy of that country. So a living wage should be, a minimum wage should be a living wage. So I think the description is very simple, but unfortunately it doesn't apply in the case of Nigeria, where you have a minimum wage that is far eroded, like my General Secretary was saying a few minutes ago. So I think the agitation has always been, let there be living wage. Even in studies these days, they refer to wage now as living wage, so that people don't just assume any compensation to be wage. So we are looking at wage as any wage that can guarantee the services, my domestic need and all the rest as a worker, that actually separate me from the unemployed. But you can't call me a worker when I'm still in almost like under worker or semi-worker. So living wage should accommodate and justify that indeed I'm a worker.
Okay, so your agitation right now is for 2017. You've seen the budget, you've heard about the budget. There is no provision for increase in payment of salary. That is your grouse, isn't it?
I think yes, like we may see, you know, Nigeria seeing the first budget does not mean that the budget is still at that level. There is always augmenting budget and all the rest. When the agitation becomes real, government certainly will do the needful by going to the drawing board, because I see a nation with a very low concern about economic drive, and that is why we are having this short sight in our programs. So for us, the 2017, we don't want to believe whatever budget accommodates is for the budget, but whatever that will be for Nigeria will be addressed as well. So Labour believe that the issue of wage certainly will be given due attention, considering that the economy itself requires that worker salary should be improved. Okay,
but you know that in that same budget, quite a lot of interventions, the 500 billion naira is still part of the social intervention. Will that help in any way?
The 5 billion, as you and I know, was supposed to be doing its duty in 2016. It was not meant to be a carryover.
No, this 2017 budget has 500 billion social intervention fund.
So the question is, the 500 billion social intervention fund for 2016, what has happened? Because the same government had earlier made arrangement for 2016 500 billion. As at the point they were removing the subsidy, I think they guarantee Nigeria that they have made provision to cushion the effect on workers and Nigerians, and that 500 billion naira will be doing justice. Unfortunately, as we speak, 1,000 has not been implemented. So what do you title that? So if anybody is telling you about 500 billion for next year, you should already ask a question. If nothing happened to 2016, then 500 plus 500, how can we talk about a billion? So for me, it's something that we should be mindful of government publications.
Okay. I like, for the sake of our viewers outside of Nigeria and for so many Nigerians across the world, paint a picture for us as to how inadequate the current minimum wage is, so that they can really, you know, come to terms with what the demands could be and what the nature of things are right now.
Looking at the nature of
the current minimum wage.
Yes.
How inadequate? Why is there the need to call for new minimum wage now? Let us have a picture of why the one currently is inadequate.
First, the legitimate backup of the inadequacy of the current wage is because it has expired. Agreement was meant to last for 5 years. It has even lasted for 6 years now. And part of the patient being exercised by NLC is also guaranteed by the fact that we are also giving room, so that people will not say, but something has just expired. You've not given them room to actually consider electoral factors and then call you for a dialogue, and you are reacting. So we have allowed the entire 2016 to go by, including 2015, because this agitation started last year. So, but we are doing so. So the major part is minimum wage is due, overdue for review. And beyond the due nature of it, the payment itself becomes unacceptable in nature, because it can no longer take home the workers. It can no longer guarantee the transport of a worker. It can even not pay rent for workers. So at a point, we need to be realistic. No matter the state of this country, we should also ask ourselves, can this salary take home these workers? Are they workers indeed? Even when the same 18 is not being even paid to certain people. So we have a lot of problems. So the definition of inadequacy is absolutely in order.
Okay. All right, we'll come back to this. Now, the present minimum wage of 18,000 naira was arrived at in 2011 after years of prolonged negotiations between the federal government and organized labor. Now, the Ayubawaba faction of the NLC at this year's May Day celebration demanded a 56,000 naira minimum wage.
Let's take a look at how the present minimum wage came about and the clamor for review. In 1998, the minimum wage was 3,500. By year 2000, the minimum wage was split into two, with federal government paying its workers 7,500, while the state and private employers paid 5,500. In 2011, the national minimum wage was reviewed from 7,500 to present 18,000 naira by the Jonathan administration.
Now, leaders of Nigeria Labour Congress in December 2008 publicly demanded for 52,200 minimum wage for workers. This wasn't implemented. The National Minimum Wage Act, which former President Jonathan signed into law in April 2011, has a 5-year reopener clause for new negotiations to review the new minimum wage. That's what the Vice President of the NLC was saying earlier on.
All right, the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress are now pushing for a review of the minimum wage, saying the current wage is grossly inadequate in the face of current economic reality. At this year's May Day celebration, organized Labour proposed a 56,000 naira minimum wage. Is that realistic? But Labour leaders say, apart from the fact that the Minimum Wage Act was due for review, the fall in the value of the naira, the increase in the electricity tariff, biting economic situation in the country, and the increase in goods and services necessitated the demand for review of the minimum wage from 18,000 naira to 56,000 naira.
All right, let's bring in Amechi in here. 56,000. Let us face the reality of on ground of the economy and who we are, what's going on right now. How realistic is 56,000 naira to be paid to each worker?
In fact, I would not have responded with question. The 56,000 as a proposal is a proper, more than a proper proposal. Okay. Like beginning negotiation with 56,000 as a demand. For me, if we had known that this would be the state of the nation, we would have gone higher than we did. Because you ask yourself, what can 56,000, because making 56,000 as a proposal mean that government certainly may not be able to offer 56, but we may arrive somewhere. So proposal in this sense is a presentation that requires response. So I would tell you that if we had ended the negotiation at 56,000 without reduction, it is still not enough for a Nigerian worker. Because we are not just saying this for the purposes of telling other countries. You and I were in Nigeria. 56,000. What class of workers are we referring to? In this country, how much is 56,000? Because all we consume in this country, they are foreign products. So you mean that whatever you consume, whether you pay in naira, they translate to
dollars. But is that not a shame on the productive force? If all you consume in Nigeria is imported, is that not a shame on the NLC as a productive force that you can't even produce what we eat in Nigeria?
But it's not the function of NLC to produce for Nigeria.
Then your productivity is in question, really?
No,
you don't
we
think
are
so?
Workers of Nigeria. We work as directed. Don't forget, either you work for government or private sectors, depending on the program of the government or the employers. If a company is to service, it means that the workers are engaged in servicing. If a company is also engaged in agriculture, the workers will be engaged in agriculture. It is the program that drives the production. So we as workers, we are readily available for work, but the provision of such work, the direction, the dimensions are the responsibility of the employers. So when we say we consume foreign product, it implies that these products are truly coming from other countries and they are permitted by government of the country. Our government permits that we consume from other countries, and that is the practice in Nigeria. So we consume foreign products every day, including the government themselves. They wear their foreign shoes, they dress foreign suits. Even you and I, the way we dress, you see that 80% of what we're putting on is from outside Nigeria. So it's no longer our sin, but that of government to actually provide a direction for the people of Nigeria.
Okay, we'll come back to, let's read out the information we had earlier on. Now, an average Nigerian has needs: housing, feeding, clothing, transportation, savings, among others. Now, the 18,000 naira minimum wage cannot even buy a bag of rice. That goes for about 23,000 naira on the average right now. Can the minimum wage take care of all of this? Is the big question we're asking this morning. But Amechi, let me come back to you on this. You said if you had a knowledge of the fact that things were going to be this bad, you would have asked for something even higher than 56,000. Now, let us create a mind picture. How much would be originally okay for a Nigerian worker now, considering how things are?
A Nigerian worker earning 100,000 as minimum, certainly one would say is averagely okay. 100,000 naira should be able to address certain needs of a worker. 100,000 is no longer big in this country because you have just drawn a picture of what a bag of rice is now. And there is no worker that is not entitled to a bag of rice. Don't forget, these workers are family workers. They have families. So if these people are married indeed, whether you're a woman or a man, but you are married, responsibility, they are so enlarged that 100,000 should be able to advance the school fees of your child. Don't forget, the government schools are made for who? The people that tells you that in every country there are classes of people, and because the program of the housing program they're advancing now is because we put the question to the Minister of Finance, the housing program meant for who? Because when you say 30% of this, sorry to digress, but I was just giving you an example
exactly.
of
No,
how
we'll
these categories of people
are
neglected.
Yes, it's interesting. We'll come back to this. Let's go on a break and we'll come back to dwell more on the program. But don't forget, the top of the hour, over time for the news update, and Ndiamugo will be taking us there at that time. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast. Thanks for staying with us on TVC Breakfast. We're discussing the call for a new minimum wage or a review of the minimum wage in Nigeria by the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC. We have the Vice President of Nigeria Labour Congress in the studio with us, Comrade Amechi Asuguni. All right, now, Amechi, recently the federal government published...
Shouldn't you finish the question on the housing? We kept interrupting and interrupting, perhaps.
You were interrupting. Like I said, it depends on the package. If a program is packaged to accommodate the vulnerable, then it's targeted to solving economic problems. Because I know very well that certain category of workers, they have also gotten to a level that they have afforded themselves houses. And then don't forget, this is a country whereby a program is drawn for itself. The people who draw program are the people that assign it to themselves. So until that element of corruption is also resolved, whereby program of housing will be open for democracy, that people will have access to this house, and the percentage for repay will be so low that at least the 18,000 will be considered. And if you don't consider 18,000, like some of them have said, that it's not necessary that the lowest worker must have a house. I agree to an extent, but the lower workers should also live under bridge. Because in as much we know that Nigerian system is dependent on Nigerians themselves, we provide everything for ourselves. Part of the reason we are asking for increase of this salary is because a worker provides virtually everything for himself. When we say independence of Nigeria, we are supposed to be depending on government in some basic need. Unfortunately, this is a country that your water, your light, including roads, people are constructing their road now. So that is to tell you that what is not the role of government? So why can't they improve my salary? The budget you have so enlarged is for who? At the end of the day, they channel it to themselves. So if the housing program will go to the rich people without being manipulated to favor some categories that are loyal to them, then eventually you will not achieve anything positive.
Okay, now we know that there is a complete, economists have said that there's excess liquidity in the economy already. Now, when you talk about increasing minimum wage to 56,000 as proposed, or even to 100,000 as ideal, as you will put it.
Or more.
We know that, or even more, as Oliver Twist may ask for more. But the point is, this will all lead to excess money flow here and there, which will, in the other hand, jack up inflation. And that by the time that goes on, it trivializes the amount of money anyone holds when it comes to the issue of value. So how concerned is the NLC when it comes to inflation rates?
We are much concerned because you know very well that you can't talk about the economy without the aggregate demand as well. And the indices for aggregate demand also includes wage as a priority. Without wage, nothing moves in the market. The economy itself, when you talk about per capita income on a nation, you take this average of the total income of that nation and then you divide by the population. So the question now is, what is the income of this country? You are afraid of what exists already. Inflation is already on ground. So modification of increase to enable them pushing. Let there be demand. Let domestic product also have answers. Who buys from who now? You find out somebody go to market and you stay there. You stay put no salary, no, I can't buy, you will sell to who? You sell on credit, you will improve. You are talking about the economy. The activities of the economy are the actions of the buyers. So we believe that it is the workers that will command the economy. It is the workers that will improve the economy. Government can only lay foundation. Government provide the atmosphere for involvement of workers and to improve the economy itself. Right. So the activities are very poor that we can no longer say that the increase should be deferred. For us, is something that will help to solve the economic problem. Okay,
if what you said is really debatable. CBN had come out a couple of times to say what we have right now, the inflation we have right now is not the classical or where you have too much money chasing few goods. That is structural, has to do with food, has to do with quite a lot of things beyond having money chasing that. And some other economists will come up and say even it's more profitable in this time of inflation to give workers more money. That will even stimulate the economy. So really it's comme ci comme ça. But let's look at the issue of the budget, which is the benchmark for 2017 is $42, and we know that crude is selling for about 52 right now. So, and tied out to the issue of revenue generation, the budget actually forecasts that there should be a 9% aggregate growth coming from the oil and gas. So shouldn't that improve your fortune, really?
You know, most of the predictions before now have neither solved any problems. Because the problem of Nigeria is beyond the focus. We have done this focus in the past, and people will always anticipate that the revenue may get increased through this source. We may also improve through the other way around. But at the end of the day, you and I will still come to talk to Nigerians to say that the expectations of Nigeria over the revenue is still done. The anticipation they have done in achieving 2017 was made just like they did before. Did anybody announce to you that there will be recession this year? Was there any forecast that it will be even so lower than they anticipated? So most of this anticipation, we shouldn't put our strong decisions based on those anticipations, because they vary very quickly, and I am sure that certainly they will do a review. So I am not going to depend on such forecast to now believe that it will favor workers, because we have said more than we are doing.
Okay, if you don't believe in this forecast, talking about revenue generation, where do you think the government will have the money to increase your salary? They depend on oil, of course, which is about 30% of the GDP. They said some non-revenue aspect, of course, is expected to bring in some revenue. So if you don't believe in this forecast, where do you expect government to get the money to pay you? Already, don't forget that they say they are borrowing to pay your salary.
They are borrowing because was I the one that caused the borrow? Don't forget, responsibility ties to he that is in power. Why should you expect labor to believe government? Do you know that what you believe, once you believe fail, you fail with it? So we are independent as well. Let them drive their program. If they anticipate that by such time of 2017, they expect to generate revenue, congratulations. But what we are saying is that the failure to achieve that should not also affect workers. Because don't forget, the argument can't go the way you want it. Not that we are not seeing them. We are looking at the past. We are looking at what has not succeeded in this country. And we are saying that the focus they are doing, what happened to diversification? If somebody is still telling you that if oil should be sold at this rate, we anticipate we will get this. What happened to the other sectors? What are we saying? Over 2 years now of diversification, till now, our budget is still not accommodating agriculture. That is to tell you that there's no program. We're only saying we want to invest, we want to spend money. What is the economic plan for this administration? Okay. What have they rolled out to show Nigerians that by end of 2017, we are sure that certain percentage of revenue will even cushion the effect of salary? So that is why oil is not reliable anymore. Okay,
we don't have all the time anymore, but Amaechi Asoguni, thank you very much. Vice President of Nigeria Labour Congress, thanks for coming on the program.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And Aluta continue, right?
Yes.
Aluta continue. All right, let's go on a break and we come back to dwell on our last topic for the day. Stay with us on TVC Breakfast.